Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club, a true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Rhonda, and together we are the Sake Sisters. For more information, check out our website at www.switchbladesistersocialclub.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at Switchblade Sisters Social Club.
Thanks for listening. Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two sisters exploit their worst fear for your entertainment. You're welcome. I'm Dee.
And I'm Rhonda.
And we never had a conversation about, well, we had a conversation about our tagline. We decided it together, but we never had a conversation about the added, you're welcome. I kind of just threw that in there. You okay with it?
I like it, and you're the boss.
Okay, cool. Because it was either that or what I tried last week, which was welcome to the shit show.
Yeah.
Which is also applicable. Yeah, interchangeable. I had a fun week because so we record in advance. So this happened a few weeks ago to you listeners in your listener calendar. But I got asked by a guy called E17 to do a little bit of work for him on his podcast. So he has a podcast called Something About Murder, and he is based in Melbourne, Australia. So he only covers Australian crimes. And we know from listening to true crime podcasts that for some reason, the Australian crimes are the most fucked up. What is it about them?
Well, you brought up an interesting fact in our Bodies and Suitcases episode where something to do with people per land or uninhabited land or something like that.
Yeah, that there was a higher crime rate where there was a more land mass or something. Yeah. I must ask him about that. I'm sure he will know all about it, but I don't know whether it's the size of the land, how rural some of the communities are.
I wondered, is it a case of opportunity, less chance of being found out, boredom? But no, I mean, how could it be boredom that leads you to murder? Do you know what I mean? But it's an very interesting fact.
Yeah. So
because we assume that it's in cities that crime happens most.
Yeah, and he obviously covers a lot of city-related crimes, but yeah, there's something about the vastness of the country that we find quite terrifying as outsiders as well. That adds to that spooky thing. I mean, Wolf Creek is, to this day, one of the most traumatizing films I've seen.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's based on a true story. Maybe I'll cover it one day. But yeah, so E17 from Something About Murder. He's on YouTube. He's fucking awesome. And also very politically conscious and sensitive because he was covering a crime. Sorry, I burped a bit. An Australian lady, a Palestinian woman living in Australia, studying in Australia. She was only about 21, who got murdered. And it's chilling. And, you know, these stories always hit home when there's a sister relation thing involved. Because she was on the phone to her sister at the time of being attacked.
I hate those when people watch someone or hear someone die.
Right? And so the sister heard her final words. And so Jay wanted to cover this case. It wasn't a political case. She wasn't murdered because she was Palestinian. But the way it was handled afterwards by the Israeli authorities, there's a lot of interesting politics around that. But he wanted a Palestinian, an Arab woman, preferably a Palestinian woman, to say these last words for his recording, which I just thought was really sweet to have that voice and, you know. But yeah, so I understand a bit of Arabic. You and I were Palestinian, we're half Palestinian, half Belgian. So we grew up with a whole host of languages, and it's kind of like jack of all trades, master of none as a result. So we have a whole bunch of half languages under our belt, don't we?
You struggle with English most days.
Tell me about it. I'm fucking dyslexic. So, yeah, so I had to get my dad involved. So it was a nice little father-daughter project where I wanted wanted to make sure that I said the words properly, because when I do speak Arabic, everyone makes fun of my accent, regardless of what country I'm speaking it in.
We have a funny accent in every language.
In every, if you think that we sound normal in our mother tongues, no, we do not. We do not. So, yeah, so we had a little recording session with my dad where I made him repeat "you shit" over and over again so that I could say it with the correct intonation. And yeah, but do check out that episode. And
we'll post it.
Yeah, we'll post a link to it. But also, I have been binging his episodes as a result and fucking love all of them. So that I've seen so far. I watched a really creepy one called The Blackout Murderer. I'm just looking up the name of the lady of the episode that I know her name is Aya. I can't remember her surname, and I want to be able to tell you about it. And this guy, I was having a chat with him, and just a super, super awesome career history where he was telling me he wrote storylines for wrestling and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
He's been in a band, so we got introduced through a mutual band friend. So yeah, he's just a really, really fun guy. It was the case of Aya Masarwe. So she's Palestinian Israeli citizen, and this is where Israel-Palestine issue gets involved. But it was just really nice. And also, I just wanted to say, I realize I very rarely listen to male voices in true crime.
That's true, yeah.
Most of the documentaries, most documentaries seem to be presented by males. But in terms of podcasts, I don't. And I think it's because unless you're female or female presenting, you don't understand the sort of daily concerns and fears of women just existing. Right? Just walking around.
Yeah, coming to think of it, the only one I can remember listening to presented by a man was Sweet Bobby.
That one was really good, yeah. It's not like I'm opposed to it, but it's kind of like when I had a male personal trainer. He was really good, but did he understand how my boobs hurt when I'm PMSing and how that affects me doing my kettlebell lift up things? Because even touching them hurts? No, because he's a man, you know? So as sensitive and as understanding as he wants to be, he will never fully get that. Yeah. And so maybe that's why, I don't know, at me if I'm wrong or bad for this. But I just found that, I actually told Jay afterwards, after listening to a couple of his episodes, like, you know, that I don't normally listen to podcasts presented by men on true crime. And he was like, well, I'm non-binary. I was like, well, I don't know if that affects your level of sensitivity, probably. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it was just really, really lovely.
Yeah, it's another perspective.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I really recommend it. Sorry, one of my 8 ring lights has switched off, and I'm worried that my bags under my eyes will show. I had a funny moment when I was trying to do my setup earlier where I was like, oh, I've got a huge bag under one eye, and I realized it was because my little crackers were blocking my ring light and creating a shadow. It's like, oh, it's just my snacks. All right, so we had a really, really difficult case last week, didn't we?
You know, they're all difficult for different reasons. For different reasons. They're all, at the end of every episode, Dee, I wonder why the fuck we're not talking about something lighthearted, you know? At the end of every episode, like, I love researching, I love podcasting. But
didn't we say we were going to end the episode with, like, a quote of the
Real
week?
Housewife. Oh.
You forgot about that.
Did.
All right, we'll start next week.
Did. I mean, I can tell you all about the episodes that I watched this week of Real Housewife.
Please don't.
But any standout, you know, profound quotes?
I don't want profound quotes. What I want from you is a standalone quote that I can use either in an argument, as a real cutting end to an email, as an insult. That's what I want.
I think, aside from Real Housewife quotes, they're not generally known to be wordsmiths, you know. Probably the standout performance was from Teresa Giudice in, you know, The Real Housewives of New Jersey when she flipped the table over. And I think that was her mic dropping moment.
I do a lot of presenting of online webinars, actually 2 a month, for at least for a charity that I work with. And it's on the issue of Israel-Palestine. And so not as often as you would think, but every now and then I get what I suppose can be termed hate mail. Mm-hmm. And that's when you know you're doing something right, I suppose. And I got a hate email from someone who surprisingly was actually politically probably quite aligned with me, but took exception to me as a person. Which
okay,
I also...
what did you allegedly do that they didn't agree with?
I think because there was a webinar. I shared you the email. There was a webinar.
Oh God, yeah, that one.
Right? There was a webinar with a speaker, and then at the end, so the speaker will normally do a presentation, and at the end there will be a Q&A session. And I guess I didn't ask his question because he's one of these types that like sends an email and some of the words are in capital letters.
I mean, when I read that email, I gathered unhinged.
Yeah,
you know, unhinged. A little. Yeah. When you get emails like that.
To put it in perspective, I had received lots of emails from him already in the past that were not pleasant, but this was next level. He thought because of my accent that I was American. And so
it's funny, that breeds a lot of hostility. We have in our lifetimes, actually, because of our accent, people have mistaken us for being American, and it can create people often start with negative connotations and ideas and biases and hostility, actually. I mean,
which is, and you know, we have a lot to say about American policy and governments and whatnot, but
I have somebody working, I was on, I think, like Crossing the Channel once years ago, and it was about probably almost 20 years ago, and this guy working on, I think it was a piano cruise, I don't know, whatever the fuck I took to cross the channel, and he started having a go at me, and I said, you know what, I actually fucking agree with your political stance, but you're an asshole.
Yeah. You know? And so it's not often helped, though, when we correct them and we tell them that we're actually Palestinian. Because normally people that are prejudiced all around. So he assumed I was American, so there was a lot of blah, blah, blah American shit. And then it was unhinged because he, out of the blue, we'd never had a conversation about the Savoy, which ironically hosts the American bar. But he said, I will never invite you to the Savoy because no doubt you would flip the table and start throwing projectiles around. I was like, first of all, I have to confess, I would love to flip a table in an argument.
Do you know what? I think there'd be something cathartic about doing it.
I cannot wait. I will do it one day. One day, just to end on a high in my mind. I'm just going to fucking flip that table. I hope you're there to record it.
And
you know we're gonna want to relive that moment all the time, aren't we?
Yeah. It's something I dream of. You know, you have those imaginary arguments in your head with somebody.
I would love it. So he tapped into my secret desires there, and I was triggered. So I mean, I would also never go for a drink with him in the Savoy. Anyways,
I know.
I might purely to do the table flipping.
It's funny that he says that as like a threat that he's never going to invite you for a drink.
I know.
Be tempted.
Do you know what's so funny is that the rest of the people involved in the charity were all arranging a drink at the Savoy to celebrate our achievements this year, off the back of that email.
It's funny. It's funny.
And I won't be flipping a table there with them because they're lovely. And also I quite like the American bar at the Savoy for a treat because they have, you know, all these amazing cocktails on like these cool stands and with like smoke coming out and cocktails in teacups and stuff like that.
Well, we'll post this on the socials when you go.
Okay. And if I ever flip a table, at the very least, I'm going to
immortalize it as a gift.
Do you know, I've actually got a voucher with a friend of mine to a rage room, which I'm so excited about.
Is that when you get to smash it up?
Yeah, but I might just ask them to put a bunch of stuff on the table so I can flip it. All right, well, look, there's enough chit-chat. No one gives a shit about us. Shall we get
Do you know
involved?
what? I'd love to know, actually. This is $1 million question. Do people give a fuck about our chit-chat? Or are they just like, just tell the fucking story?
Are you skipping this? Or are you listening to this?
That's what we want to know. Tell us.
We won't really be offended. We'll block you on our socials, but, you know, as long as you're listening to our podcast, we don't care.
Genuinely, I'm curious because, you know, when I listen to podcasts, at first I'm like, oh, God. You know, Murder Most Irish, which I love their podcast, but like when I first started listening to them, you told me they're amazing. My bestie Lynn told me they're amazing. And so I listened to them, but then it does take them a good half hour to get onto the story. And before I got to know them, I just couldn't get invested in their.
But how are you going to get to know them without the chit chat?
True. I love their chit chat. So,
well, this is episode like 15 or 16 now, I think. I lose track. So hopefully people are invested in the story of our lives.
Let's hope. If they're still with us by this episode, 15 or 16, then we must be doing something right.
Yes. Also, why don't you drop us some questions you want to answer? You want us to answer?
Yeah, and
we're pretty open.
Tell us what cases you want us to look into, because that always helps.
Cases, questions, any topics that you are dying to know what we think about.
Yeah.
All right.
Now tell me the fucking story. Come on. I'm here for it.
Oh, I want to do a poll about whether we should do some tell me the fucking story merch. Because that is like, I know you've said it a handful of times on this podcast, but also you've told it to me about 800 million times in my life. If you want me to get to the juicy bit and I'm not going fast enough, it's always been, tell me the fucking story.
You know what it is? It's because, like, this is why I hate films, because the build up takes too long. Just get straight into it. That's why I like TV series, because like the action is much more fast paced. I can't deal with like I don't want to know the backstory, all the you know how like takes a good half hour in a film before you really get to the juicy stuff. So yeah, I need to just, fast forward all that shit and then, get to the good stuff.
Okay,
so,
well,
let's go.
Off the back of last week's case, I actually had 2 cases to choose between, but I'm going to do the slightly lighter-hearted one.
Oh.
Because, we say lighthearted, we said that about Amy Fisher, and that one fucking just sent me over the edge.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's lighter in that it's an old-timey one, okay. And those ones always feel a bit more distant, a bit more removed, I guess, but there's some elements of it that are so shocking, and...
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's just, but then there's also one part that I just makes me laugh every time I think about it, in all honesty. One small part, and it's not to do with murder. It kind of is. Oh, I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay, go.
So today, I'm going to tell you the story of Hell's Belle, Belle Gunness. Have you heard of her?
No, nothing about it. Nothing about her.
Okay, because we've talked in passing quite often about Black widows, people who marry for financial, well, no, they don't just marry for financial gain. They marry and then murder their partners for financial gain. I thought this would be a very, very good case to cover for you.
Stories. Oh, good, go. Juicy.
So get ready. You're not ready. You need to be more ready. You need to be more ready, because this was a fucking roller coaster, okay?
Okay, go.
Okay, so who is Belle? Belle Paulson was born on the 11th of November, 1859. Yeah. Although I'm not entirely sure about this exact date. I think that it's not correct, or some of the other dates aren't correct because they don't all line up properly. But you get the idea. She's in the 1800s, right? She was born in Norway. She was the youngest of 8 children. And that is a lot of children. As a teenager, she worked as a farmhand. Her family were modest, to put it lightly. They were poor, right? So she was a teenage farmhand, and she became pregnant by the son of a rich man. This piece of shit didn't want to take on any of the responsibility, didn't want to marry her, take on the responsibility of being a father. So he took her to an isolated spot and punched her in the stomach so that she would miscarry.
Oh, God.
Surprise, surprise. Loved ones said that this was a real turning point for her and that they noticed her personality change from this point forward. No fucking surprise. She's still a teenager. Not only has she got pregnant, but she's been assaulted with the purpose of miscarrying. Soon after this, the rich boy who did this to her, actually died of stomach cancer. This death by stomach cancer obviously gets questioned later on when we know more about Belle. Okay. So Belle decided to follow her older sister Nellie out to the States in 1881. So she was about 22 at this time. She moved to Chicago where her sister Nellie already lived. Belle, by the way, was blonde and curvy and blue-eyed, so she was real like Scandinavian beauty, right? She worked as a maid, and in 1884, she married a shop security guard, Mads Sorensen. They had 4 children, but as was common at the time, 2 died as infants of acute colitis. But what makes this slightly more unusual, perhaps, is that both of these small children had their lives insured already.
Oh, God, I don't like this.
And I don't remember hearing that many cases of that being that seems weird, right? They decided to open, Mads and Belle, they decided to open a cake shop together, which would be hashtag relationship goals if it hadn't been such an epic failure. Like how cute a little cake shop, you know? But they were struggling financially. The cake shop was not taking off. And then lo and behold, the cake shop burns down and the insurance payout buys them a house. So again, they are insured to the eyeballs, which we know is either very sensible or a massive red flag. So at the time of the 1900 Chicago census, the household consisted of Belle and Mads, their children Myrtle and Lucy, and a foster daughter called Jenny Olson. Soon after the census, Mads died, but he died on the day that 2 of his life insurances overlapped.
Oh, she's beginning to look suspect.
So he had 2 life insurances. They overlapped for a single day, and he dies on that day, meaning he's eligible for, well, not him, he's dead, but his family are eligible for both of those insurance payouts. She
is one hell of a businesswoman.
I mean, with so many of these cases, if they use their smarts for good, it would be amazing. So,
oh, God.
Yeah, this is getting a bit more suspicious, isn't it? Mads's doctor had been seeing him for a heart condition, so his death was attributed to this heart condition, even though a second doctor suspected strychnine poisoning.
What's that?
It's a poison.
Okay.
So not an accidental death, basically. Belle received $8,500 from the insurance. So that's from the 2 policies, which I did a lot of currency maths for this one. I say maths, I put it into a fucking website, but that equates to around $300,000 in today's money.
Whoa, okay.
Right? Mads' family suspected Belle, but nothing came of it. So, like, that's for your in-laws. I know there's lots of jokes of in-laws and this, that, and the other, but there's got to be something pretty mega going on for your in-laws to suspect you of murder, right?
Yeah.
Belle used the money to buy a farm in a town called La Porte, which was 60 miles from Chicago. This area had loads of Scandinavians. It had a high Scandinavian population, so she probably felt more at home there. She's on her own. She's got her kids to raise. The farmhouse had previously been used as a brothel by a madam called Mattie Alty, so the locals welcomed Belle. They obviously preferred it to be a family home than a brothel. Well, the women preferred that. Anyway. Apparently the house had 2 stories, 6 bedrooms. It was red brick and it had a large cellar. And they had loads of kerosene lamps around for lighting. So this is a far cry from Belle's very poor upbringing in Norway. She's doing well for herself. There was a swamp on one side and a wood on another side and an orchard nearby. Just giving you a bit of context, but I know you're thinking, tell me the fucking story. Soon after this move, Belle meets Peter Gunness. He was also recently widowed and Norwegian born. Belle at this point had her 2 daughters and her foster daughter, and Peter had a baby son. He was a hog farmer and a butcher. He was tall and handsome, and so they married in 1902. So you know what's coming, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't.
Do I not?
No. One day soon after the wedding, Peter's son dies.
Oh, God. No.
Care.
Come on. Why the kids? No.
There doesn't seem to be any suspicion at this point, and Belle and Peter set up a hog farm together on Belle's land. Belle was sturdy and very involved in the business. Like, remember, she used to be a farmhand as a teenager, so she wasn't adverse to, like, getting stuck in, you know? Then in 1904, Belle was pregnant, but this was also the year that Peter dies. Apparently, a large iron meat grinder fell on his head. Belle said it was an accident. There was an investigation at this point because everyone was suspicious. And the foster daughter, Jenny Olsen, was reported to have gone to school one day and say, "My mama killed my papa. She hit him with the meat cleaver and he died."
Oh my God.
I mean, you used to be a teacher. Tell me what steps would need to be taken in this day and age. If a kid came into school.
You have to report everything to the safeguarding officer. Especially that.
Yeah.
Murder.
Exactly. Especially seeing if the guy was actually dead.
Oh my God.
So
God.
Pretty damning.
She's a serial killer.
So when Jenny Olsen, the foster daughter who went into school to say all this, when she was called to court to testify, she denied saying this at all. It's like, of course she did. She's living at home with this woman. Like, it's her mother figure. You know, she's a child. There's so many reasons why. And
we learned that from the Michelle Notek case, that the kids keep quiet out of being scared.
Out of fear, maybe Stockholm syndrome, maybe, you know. It was ruled as an accident, and Belle got $3,000 in insurance money, which is today around $100,000. This
woman is luckier than Robert Durst from the Jinx.
Right?
Jesus.
Then baby Philip is born, because remember, she was pregnant when Peter died. Then one day, the foster daughter, Jenny Olsen, remember the one who went into school and said, "My mama killed my papa." One day, she disappears.
Do you know what? Right from the start, when you mentioned foster daughter, I was scared for her.
I mean, you mentioned Michelle Notek. It's giving Michelle Notek vibes, isn't it? So one day, Jenny disappears, and neighbors are told that Belle sent her off to LA to go to school there. Right. So Belle now starts having an affair with her handyman, Ray Lamphere, I'm going to say. And she develops what can only be described as an early romance fraud scheme.
The fuck is that?
think Tinder swindler, okay? So, by the way, I guest quite often on a podcast called Women Who Rebrand, hashtag WWR, wwrdigital.com. With Sarita Fontaine, who I've mentioned loads of times on here because she's fabulous. But anyways, we interviewed a lady called Becky Holmes, who had just produced a book about romance fraud, online romance fraud, and it's fucking hilarious. Like, she is hilarious. We'll put the links in the show notes. But there's one case that I have to tell you about where, so a lot of these people, they swap lists of vulnerable people around. Like, they have lists that they share with each other, right? God. So once you're on one of these lists, which she somehow got on, she started getting approached by loads of people. And apparently, and this is a PSA, right? Apparently, a lot of catfish online pretend they're either working on oil rigs or working in the military, because that that is a really good excuse for not being able to meet up, for living overseas or out of, out of the area. I can't, I'm on duty, blah, 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 right? So she gets approached by one guy who pretends that he's working on an oil rig. And he's like, I wish I could see you. Can you send me £3,000? Because that's how much it costs to get the helicopter and the boat and the blah, 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 to come and see you on land. And she's like, never mind, I'm coming to you. And because she'd just been to Iceland, she had loads of pictures of her trekking through snow, being in a helicopter and all sorts. So she used these photos of her holiday in Iceland to trick this guy who apparently was off like North Scotland, on an oil rig north of Scotland somewhere. So when he was like, no, don't come here. Anyways, you need a helicopter. She's like, found one, sending the picture of her in this helicopter. It's fucking hilarious. Go check out her Twitter where she reports a whole bunch of these. This is the fucking stupid thing. She posts all of this shit on her own Twitter, and the catfish still come and approach her on her Twitter. It's like, do not take 1 second to look at what she's talking about.
She get on this alleged list of vulnerable people? What is the criteria for vulnerable people? It might
just be that she's responded a couple of times to catfish.
Okay.
She's engaged X amount, so they're like, oh, she's like on a warm list.
Literally, like, these people are doing lead generation, basically.
And selling their mailing list to each other. It's disgusting. But yeah, so she's written a whole book on it. It's fucking hilarious. But a very serious issue, because it happens and people are losing money, losing years of their life to this shit, like all kinds of stuff. So do be aware online.
Like obviously. Sweet Bobby, we talked about it last episode, but Sweet Bobby and this one. Yeah. But yeah, Sweet Bobby, that's another case of that. It's Well,
yeah, but that one's slightly different. I don't want to give any spoilers because people should listen to that. But that one I feel is slightly different for the reason that, and I'm going to cut this out because I don't want to ruin it, that she knew the person. It's not someone who's just approached her online. But anyway, so yeah, it's, this is a very early version of Tinder swindling, let's say.
Impressed. So, you know what? She's abhorrent, but she was a Tinder swindler before the days of social media and internet.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty, she has skills.
So do you want to know how she did an old-timey romance fraud?
Yes.
So she started placing Lonely Hearts ads in Chicago papers. Now I'm going to open something up and I want you to read it. Because I have her ad here and I want you to read it.
I'm loving this story. I'm loving the story, and maybe it's because it's like, you know what? I'm not loving the children deaths, but maybe it's because it's an old-timey one that it feels kind of detached from.
And I always feel bad about that because I'm sure there's like descendants of the victims that still feel the ramifications of these crimes, but it does make it a bit easier to talk about.
It does, definitely.
For example, Levi Belfield, that happened only a couple of years ago in the area where we live. I'm going to share my screen now because this is her Lonely Hearts ad, and I want you to read it, okay?
Personal, comely widow who owns a large farm in one of the finest districts in LaPorte County, Indiana, desires to make the acquaintance of a gentleman equally well provided with view of joining fortunes. No replies by letter considered unless sender is willing to follow. Answer with personal visit. Triflers need not apply. What is a trifler?
That's the bit that always makes me laugh.
Triflers.
Triflers need not apply.
I want to know.
Trifler is like waste of timer. You know what I mean?
Oh God, I love that word. I'm going to use it every day.
It's so good.
Don't be trifling.
That's the bit that every time I think about it, it makes me laugh. I just can't not laugh at this. Okay, so I mean that's an ad and a half, isn't it? That's a woman that knows what she wants. She's like, I want us to join fortunes. I have my own wealth. I'm looking for someone on a level pegging to me. You could see how that would get some responses, right?
Yeah.
So, triflers need not apply. I want to put that on my business cards. I want to put that on my website.
Oh, I love it.
So actually lots of people respond to this ad. and many are never seen again.
Honestly, like, she's an actual, like, serial killer.
Oh, for sure. So one day, George Anderson turns up from Missouri. Belle asked if he would provide for her financially, and he said, of course, if they were married. Very common in the day that a husband would financially support the wife. He woke up that night with Belle hovering over him in bed with what he thought was a hammer. So he got the fuck out of Dodge first thing in the morning, which I was like, you didn't leave immediately?
But they weren't married yet at this point.
Yeah. So I think that was her issue, that he would want to wait until they were married. She was quite hoping for a bit of the cashola, you know, immediately, right?
Do you think this was all money driven, or did she have like a taste for murder?
She obviously didn't mind the murdering. Whether she enjoyed it or whether she, you know, just saw it as a necessary evil to get what she wants. I don't really know, but let's see. Let me finish the story and you tell me what you think. So yeah, this guy escapes. He actually escapes. It's not clear whether he reported this at the time or whether this came out after she was finally identified, I should say. Then in 1908, Andrew, I'm going to say his name wrong, Hegeline. I should just pick a saying and stick with it. Andrew Hegeline from South Dakota exchanged letters with Belle in which she invited him to visit, and at the time asked for $1,000, which is something like $30,000 in today's money. She said she had to make a mortgage payment and she was desperate. The letter she sent was nauseating. Do you want to read?
Yes, I do.
Of course you fucking do. Okay, let me share my screen so that you can read her letter to this guy.
To the dearest friend in the world, no woman in the world is happier than I am. Let me read that again. No woman in the world is happier than I am. I know that you are now to come to me and be my own. I can tell from your letters that you are the man I want. It does not take one long to tell when to like a person, and you I like better than anyone in the world I know. Think how we will enjoy each other's company. You, the sweetest man in the world. We will be all alone with each other. Can you conceive of anything nicer? I think of you constantly. When I hear your name mentioned, and this is when one of our dear children speaks to you, or I hear myself humming it with the words of an old love song, it is beautiful music to my ears. My heart beats in wild rapture for you. My Andrew, I love you. Come prepared to stay forever.
Nos, right?
Mm.
So Nos. So Andrew arrived.
Like the real Belle, huh?
She was putting it on a bit. So, but you could see how that would make a man's heart flutter. So Andrew arrives with his whole life savings of $2,900, so close to $100,000 in today's money. But this tells me that he won't be of use to Belle for that long. He's just brought everything he has to offer her in her eyes. There are reports of Belle and Andrew going to the bank to deposit this check into Belle's account, and then Andrew is, surprise, surprise, never seen again. But then two things started happening. First of all, Assel Hegeline, Andrew's brother, started asking about his brother's whereabouts and about Belle, because he knew that his brother was going to go and meet this woman, live happily ever after, and he got concerned when he didn't hear from him anymore. Secondly, Ray Lamphere, her handyman, who she was having an affair with, was kind of becoming a pain in her ass. So Belle approached the local sheriff, Mr. Schmolzer, and let slip that Ray is acting weird and drinking too much and threatening to burn her farm down.
She's a slimy, conniving, I don't even know what to...
She is definitely not trifling, but she is shisty. So at this point, Ray had already been fired by Belle because he was acting really jealous. That's the version that Belle gives anyways. Belle also went to a lawyer and told him that she feared for her life, which again feels like a setup.
Mm-hmm.
She asked the lawyer to drop a will, leaving everything to her children. And I think, again, this was to place emphasis on the fact that she was scared for her life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she went in there and she put on a show, because like drawing up a will and leaving everything to your kids when you have money and property is not that weird. She went in there like, I'm so scared. This has to be done immediately because I'm so scared, you know? Then in 1908, shit really hit the fan, because guess what? Belle's farm burned to the ground.
Wait, she didn't do it?
Revealing corpses in the cellar.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, where was she hiding them? I thought it was the swamp because you mentioned a swamp.
Oh, you're so near and yet so far.
Cellar.
So these corpses, they turned out to be her 3 children, the 2 daughters.
Fuck. Oh God. God. Okay.
As well as the headless corpse thought to be Belle. So Ray is charged with murder and arson, because remember, she'd been laying this idea that Ray was jealous and angry and threatening to burn her farm down. So Ray is charged with murder and arson. Andrew's brother turns up to investigate what is happening and where his brother is, and investigators at the farm fire site are searching for the head of the headless corpse thought to be Belle. But they find instead, what do you think they find instead? More corpses!
Oh.
How many more corpses do you think they found?
I don't know, but the body count is high at this stage.
14 in total.
Jesus!
Including Andrew Hagelin. Remember the one whose brother is looking for him. So
and Belle is doing all these killings herself. So
at least Andrew's brother has got some answers, which I don't know how much that helps, but it must help some. They also, they'd also found, like I said, the foster daughter Jenny, the one who Belle pretended to be studying in LA. It's estimated at this point that Belle scammed these 14 men out of at least $30,000, which is over $1 million in today's money. The head of the corpse was never found, but the plate of Belle's false teeth was found sort of near the remains, which they counted as proof that the body was Belle's, even though, from what I understand about false teeth, that they're mobile and can be removed.
So, at this point, do you think it's her maintenance guy?
Yeah, he's been charged at this point. And even if they suspect Ray of the murder and the fire, they still suspect Belle of the 14 murders. Mm-hmm. So why are they trusting that this is her corpse when they know how wicked she is? Mm-hmm. So when the news broke, Sheriff Smoltzer was inundated with letters from people, this is really sad, about their missing loved ones to see if their loved one might be one of those victims. Because I don't think they identified all 14 people in the end.
At first you said, yeah, well, how are they blah, 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 when they know how wicked she is?
When the news broke of this fire and all the 14 corpses that they found, plus the children, Sheriff Smoltzer was inundated with letters from people about their missing loved ones to see if they might be one of the victims, because they were still trying to identify all the victims found, and I don't think they ever fully identified all of them. Then, that same year, 1908, Ray Lamphere goes to trial. He denies the charge of murder and arson. Do you want to hear a plot twist?
Yes.
The citizens of LaPorte town viewed the corpse, the headless corpse, which makes me wonder if viewing the corpse was a thing. And even the townspeople said that it wasn't Belle.
How could they tell?
Doctors measured the corpse and said it could not possibly be the body of Belle. The corpse was estimated to be of someone who was 5'3" and 150 pounds. Belle was 5'8" and closer to 180 pounds. The stomach of the headless woman also contained strychnine poison.
Oh, God.
I mean, and also she was headless, so she's been murdered.
What was the need for the beheading?
We'll discuss this in a bit.
Okay.
And the local banks revealed that Belle had withdrawn all her money before the fire. I mean, is none of this suspicious? Why are they still thinking that this person is Belle? After a 2-week trial, Ray is found guilty of arson, but they could not prove murder. He still got a sentence of 20 years for the arson to be served in Michigan City State Prison. But he died within a year from tuberculosis, which I imagine was super common, especially in prisons at the time. But guess what he did? It's one of my favorite things of all time.
Is this a plot twist?
Yep, he made it. He made a deathbed confession. I loved him.
Okay, tell me.
I might make a whole episode about these because, you know, like how I love when a cold case is solved. I also really love when we finally get some answers through, you know, a deathbed confession. Yeah, so this led me onto a tangent. Want to hear some monumental deathbed confessions?
Yeah, but I'm intrigued about Ray because until now, he hadn't committed any crimes. So what did he have to confess about?
Well, okay, I won't tell you any. I'll save these for another time. Okay. So anyways, back to Ray Lamphere and his deathbed confession. Sorry,
you froze. I said, what did he have to confess about?
So anyway, back to Ray Lamphere. He confesses to his priest. I don't know if this is a confession. He confesses that he never killed anyone. But he confesses that he had helped Belle bury some of her victims. And here we see the power of the pussy and the arrogance of men. Because did he not stop to think at some point that she might turn around and do the same to him? Like when you date someone who you know is a cheater, and then you're surprised that they cheat on you. And I can just hear Ray saying, I thought she would change for me. You know?
To be fair, though, Belle was pretty convincing. You know, she was a mastermind.
Right? And good with her words. If you like that kind of nauseating, vomit-inducing fucking shit. Anyway. So he said when a suitor would arrive, she would welcome him. She would cook him a lovely meal and give him a coffee, which was usually drugged either with strychnine poisoning or a sedative. She would then get the meat chopper. Remember, it was a hog farm. And, quote, she would split their heads.
Why?
She would often dissect them in the cellar. Remember, dismembering of bodies is often happens at the perpetrator's house or the victim's house.
Oh, so she did enjoy the murder part of it. It wasn't just financial.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if the dissection was part of the disposal process. And Ray also suspects that there were many more victims than the 14 men. I mean, we kind of suspect that she was committing these crimes even before she moved to this farmhouse. Ray claims she fed some of the victims to the hogs. He says the headless woman was a Chicago sex worker and the head was weighted down and thrown in the nearby swamp. It begs the question why she didn't find a sex worker that matched her physically a bit more, because that seems to be one of her main flaws in her plan and one of the big red flags.
And did she get disposed of the head of this woman because it would make it harder to identify the body?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. She wanted them. She placed her fake teeth near this body to make it look like it was her body, and that she had been murdered by Ray. And I don't know whether she thought people wouldn't note the difference in size of these women.
You know, this is before the internet, before people could Google body disposal, how to get away with murder.
Do you know what I mean?
Belle is fucking smart. She's evil, but she's smart.
Ray says he helped her set fire to the house, and then they were due to leave town separately and meet at a rendezvous point. But guess what? Yep, Belle never showed. So stupid Ray just went back home, where he then got charged with arson and murder.
Stupid Ray.
Stupid Ray. Ray suspects that Belle killed 42 men and swindled over $250,000. And that in modern day money is $8.5 million. And that's that Ray knows about.
God, I mean, she was a career fraud.
So, have you got any questions? I hope so.
Oh, do you know what? It's a lot to process, but you know what? I feel ashamed to say that I've enjoyed this story so far.
But don't you want to know what the fuck happened to Belle?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, Belle was never found. But, as you can imagine, there were loads of sightings of her around the US. Some people think she went back to Norway. On record, she is listed as dying in April 1908, because this is the last time she was officially seen.
Okay.
But I don't think you and I believe that she died any time around this fire, right?
I feel like she'd be around with the fucking cockroaches at the end of the world.
Right?
She's some sort of survivor.
So let's fast forward to 1931.
Still operational. She must have been in her 80s then.
Story continues. An elderly woman called Esther Carlson is charged with murdering a man for financial gain. Are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
She dies before the trial starts, but 2 residents of LaPorte see the photo of Esther Carlson in the paper and suspect that it is Belle Gunness. Do you want to see comparison photos?
Yes, I do. I want to know what she looks like.
Okay. You tell me what you think.
Okay, let me look.
Look at things like the mouth, the eyes.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm looking at. Like, okay, so which one is the before?
The before is the one on the left. The after is the one with the hat.
Yeah, it's her, right? Skinnier and older.
Look at this picture. And this picture. Look, see?
Yeah.
Same kind of like pointy nose.
Yeah.
Same lips.
Yeah. Yeah. Just more weathered. Looks like she lived a hard last few years. With all her millions that she defrauded and murdered people.
You know what I mean? The bank accounts that she cleared out before she disappeared. Exactly. But I don't know, that looks a lot like her to me, right? So she got charged with poisoning a man for financial gain, which we know is in her wheelhouse. I'm guessing in 1931, the police are getting more savvy with this kind of stuff and collecting evidence and whatever. So she is caught, but then she dies before the trial. But like I said, people are wondering, was she Belle Gunness? And then, as recently as 2007, they exhumed the body of the headless corpse. Remember the Chicago sex worker found in Belle's basement that she...
Who requested that? Yeah, who requested to exhume the body?
I don't know whether the case was still open and, you know, every now and then they try to reopen a case or there's funding for some... I don't know. But this is the body that Belle tried to make out looked like her, you know, was her body. They wanted to see, first of all, if they could do DNA testing to identify who the woman was, but also to see if they could retrieve enough DNA from a letter of Belle's and this corpse to finally confirm whether yes or no, is that corpse Belle or is it someone else? Unfortunately, they couldn't do either of them. They just could not retrieve enough DNA either from the corpse or the letter or both in order to say whether that was Belle or not.
Why couldn't they work out whether it was Belle or not?
I don't know. But
I mean, how would they have? Before DNA testing, how would they have done this?
No, but this was in 2007 when they were...
okay.
They exhumed the body, so they're hoping that this body that's now, you know, 100 years old, and this letter that is 100 years old will have, and the body was burnt as well, that they'll be able to retrieve enough DNA from both sources to say whether that body is Belle. But sadly, they couldn't retrieve enough DNA from either or both of those sources in order to do this. But as recently as 2007, they're still like on this case.
Wow.
So that's the end. But also, what the fuck?
Do you know what? Like, I feel ashamed to say this, but I really enjoyed that.
I knew you would.
I hate the bit about the kids, and but there's something about a story taking place a long time ago that makes it feel more detached. Like, I mean, we talked about Leah Letby, and we were like, no, we can't cover that. It's too fresh. It's too recent. But when a case is this, like, it almost doesn't feel real when it's like a historical story, because I guess when we're at school, we cover so many bloody histories, you know, that it just doesn't seem real. But you know what? That case is fucking fantastic because
it has everything.
It's shocking, and it's the twists, and it's shocking, and she's audacious, she's calculating, she's like a fucking Disney villain. Do you know what I mean? But also what makes it such a great case and so interesting is because she's the Tinder swindler without all the resources that he had. Like, she's an absolute criminal mastermind without...
I mean, she managed to attract people from across the USA before the time of airplanes and whatnot. So,
where did she learn to be so conniving, so calculating? Like, honestly, without the internet, she
I know. She's literally, she's a genius.
She's a one-woman crime ring. Like, you know, we shouldn't praise her achievements. But she...
Or probably call them achievements, but her actions. We shouldn't praise her actions. But she...
I mean, I'm astounded. I shouldn't say in awe. I'm definitely not impressed, but I'm astounded of what she, like... Of what she managed to do.
She managed to use these smarts for good.
No mobile phones. No sexting. None of this to tempt these men.
I know, but she was very clear, wasn't she? Do you remember the line?
Triflers need not apply. Triflers. I mean, she was bold, brazen, fucking morally destitute.
But yeah.
But she got her comeuppance. Well, she didn't get her comeuppance. They found her out in the end.
I mean, she didn't even face the trial.
No.
Do you know what I mean? When they caught her. I believe that Esther Carlson was Belle Gunness. It lines up, the age, whatever. I mean, they look similar enough, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, the facial structure, the shape of the lips, the shape of the eyes, just...
Or it might just be me needing it to be wrapped up in a bow. You know how I don't like unsolved things.
No, but it's
believable, though, isn't it?
The likeness is undeniable of those.
We're going to post that comparison picture on Facebook.
Ask, do a poll, and see what you think.
Let's do a poll, yeah.
But I have to admit that I enjoyed that story, and I don't feel the same uneasiness or sadness or discomfort that I usually feel.
Do you want me to every now and then do an old-timey one to help?
So funny. Should I tell you something? When you said you're doing an old-timey one, I thought, boring!
I know, I was worried because you're always like, I don't care about history.
Oh, no, because honest to God, when we were at school, like, we had one really good history teacher, Mrs. Leonard, remember? And
Mrs. Leonard! Oh,
she would act it out. She would act it. She would act
it was like story time, wasn't it? Going to your class was like, just sit down and listen to a lovely story about, like, Greek mythology, or,
and then
you know.
We had this other one who was so nice, won't say her name because she was so nice, but she'd fucking be like, and in 1903 this happened, write it down. And in 1904 this happened, write it down. And then I would zone out. I can't with boring stuff.
I know.
I can't. And so whenever it's like, you know, I'm not that into, I know we got to learn from history so that we don't make the same mistakes and stuff. And history, like, the world is the way it is now because of whatever happened in history.
And of course we know that happy people have no history.
Oh, God, yeah, that's drilled in. But, like, you know, I wouldn't, like, naturally put on a historical documentary. Do you know what I mean? Like, into the Romans.
But if you saw one about Belle Gunness, would you?
I'd be into it, yeah. That's the thing. Like, when you said old-timey, I thought, oh,
Why do you always assume everything I'm going to talk about is going to be boring? You did this with Natalie Wood.
Just those two. That's it.
Oh,
just
okay.
Those two. Yeah, just those two.
Well, I'll mix it up.
Let's explain. Natalie Wood, I thought, well, how interesting could that be? She's squeaky clean. What's there to tell there? Did not know about. I just thought she drowned.
You thought I was going to come here and present a podcast episode where I'm like, Natalie Wood, she was Maria, she was squeaky clean, and then she drowned. The end. What do you think?
I mean, that was actually one of my favorites this season.
It was so good.
I mean, I like a bit of sensationalism, like some scandals and some juice and some tea.
Well, that bodes well for the upcoming surprises that we've got for you.
But you know what? I tell you what, I have to say, I'm feeling different at the end of this episode than I do the others, where I'm like, oh God, I'm so depressed now, and I need to go. I don't know, listen to a Prodigy or something to cleanse my soul of this misery. I don't have that same feeling, and I should be ashamed of myself.
Next week, next story will not leave you feeling good like this. I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, we like to mix it up every now and then. Sometimes we're a bit lighthearted. Sometimes we're a bit political. Other times we're just full-blown murdery and stalkery, aren't we?
Next week, my episode is a different one too.
All right.
Let's say that. Yeah, I'm not good at clues. If I'm not good at I either say all or nothing. Don't know how to just drop a clue.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a pleasure presenting to you, Rhonda, and to our listeners this case of Belle Gunness. Have a look at us on our website and contact us if you want to work with us. But we must say, triflers need not apply.
I love it.
Oh, such a good line. Such a good line. That's what I want from your fucking Real Housewives quote of the week.
Okay. I'll make notes.
Okay, thank you. All right, love you all.
Mwah!
Sleep well. Bye.
Bye. Hey there. Thanks for being a loyal listener.
Do you need a new website or want to boost your social media performance? Or do you hate podcast editing? You've tried optimizing your website and social media channels, but you're still not getting the listeners, downloads, and engagement you want?
We, the Safier sisters, love helping people with tasks that they hate. We know a thing or two about podcasts, websites, and social media, and we love working with other podcasters and business owners.
So why not head over to switchbladesisterssocialclub.com and go to our Work With Us section. We believe in collaboration over competition. A rising tide raises all ships.
Bye!